Nancy Drew Files number 15, Trial by Fire, begins by kicking George out of the book, because she was in the last one, and there's no way George can be in 2 books in a row. This is actually part of a 5-book chunk where Nancy trades off between Bess and George. Why is it impossible for her to have 2 friends at the same time? The good news is that boyfriends don't count towards the 1-friend limit, so Ned Nickerson can hang out with Nancy and Bess. The 3 of them do hang out when they are interrupted by an emergency news bulletin. Nancy's father, Carson Drew, has just been arrested for bribing a judge. Everyone rushes to the prison for more information. The judge who had Carson arrested is Nancy's honorary uncle, Jonathan Rank. Not Uncle John! He's my favorite uncle who has never been mentioned before! Uncle John was bribed over a lawsuit against reporter Anne Granger. Granger received Sorry, the huge information dump is starting to bore me a little. Let's make a long story short. There's an insurance scam, and it's even more suspicious than the dinner I cooked last night. Nancy has a meeting with Anne's anonymous source, and seriously, Nancy needs to stop meeting with anonymous phone callers. They are always a trap! She gets kidnapped, and since she apparently forgot how to do karate, she escapes by slamming the car door on the kidnapper's fingers. Nancy gets into a Gold Star cab, driven by Jim Dayton. You might recognize him as September 1987's Hunk of the Month. Jim drives Nancy to Uncle John's house, where she convinces her uncle to drop the lawsuit against Carson. Uncle John isn't a bad guy, and besides, Nancy's uncle arresting her father would make for a really awkward Thanksgiving dinner. Even more awkward than the dinner I cooked last night. You might not believe me, but those potatoes started life as nachos. Anyway, moments after his change of heart, Uncle John is killed. Nancy pays her respects to him by searching through his house in order to find proof that he's a crook. Yeesh, sounds like Nancy and her uncle had a bad relationship. It turns out that Uncle John had huge gambling debts, and he was blackmailed into framing Carson. In order to make things easier for Nancy, Uncle John conveniently labeled a photograph of the blackmailers, who are the owners of Gold Star cabs. Great! We know Carson was framed, and we know who the culprits are. But Nancy can't go to the police yet, because we're only halfway through the book. Nancy investigates Gold Star cabs by getting a job as a taxi driver. Her undercover persona is Nancy Nickerson, Ned's wife. I think Nancy is trying to send a message to her boyfriend here. You know, it's funny because when Ned proposes to Nancy in book number 24, she turns him down. Anyway, a few chapters of sleuthing reveal that the cab company is a front organization for car thieves. They steal cars, they disguise them as taxis, and once the search warrants expire, they sell the cars for huge profit. Now, I should note that Nancy doesn't solve the mystery after getting all the clues. All she gets is this odd paragraph. A sudden thought skittered around in Nancy's mind, but it disappeared before she could capture it. She couldn't even imagine what had triggered it. At last she decided she'd better just relax and let the thought come back in its own time. That's right, Nancy solves the mystery and immediately forgets about it. Good job, Nancy. You're a role model for women everywhere. The ending sequence starts with Anne being kidnapped. Nancy and Bess break into Gold Star to rescue her, but Nancy is captured and locked inside a cage. I think the criminals did this mainly because it makes for a cool cover picture. Also, we need an excuse to put the hot guy on the book's cover, so Jim shows up. He tries to be a hero, but the villains easily knock him out, and everyone sort of forgets about him after that. Bess ends up being the hero of the book, because she rescues Nancy, she finds the evidence that clears Carson, and she tapes the villain's confession. Way to go, Bess! The culprits are arrested, the charges against Carson are dropped, and I make a petition to change the name of this book. The end. Post-book follow-up. Overall, this is a good book, but it takes a while to get into because the start of the book is very information heavy. You have to learn all of the various details of the insurance scam and how it relates to Anne's court case and how that case relates to Carson's arrest. It's just a little too much to digest at once. The book might have been better served if it eased off on the insurance scam a bit and put more focus on Carson Drew's arrest. Let's be honest, Nancy's father getting arrested on false charges is way more interesting than learning the particulars of an insurance company's board of directors. Compared to the rest of the series, this book is surprisingly realistic. In the last 3 books, Nancy walked away from explosions unscathed. In this book, Nancy is hurt by an explosion. In other books, Nancy's karate stops all criminals instantly. In this book, Nancy's karate moves don't stop her opponents in one hit. It's definitely better than, say, the ballerina karate fight from book number 9, and I enjoyed seeing this more realistic take on Nancy Drew facing danger. As for the mystery, Nancy has some minor mental hiccups, mainly so the reader can have a chance to solve the mystery on their own. I'm not a huge fan of Nancy overlooking clues, but it didn't bother me that much, mainly because all of Nancy's mistakes aren't obvious until the second time around. Hindsight is 20/20, you know? I always feel bad giving a book a high score after spending 5 minutes making fun of it, but I can't deny that this book has a solid story built around an interesting premise. Also, it's 2 chapters longer than the average book in this series, so that's another point in its favor. I would probably improve the book by getting rid of Jim or cleaning up the insurance company lectures, but other than that, there's not much that needs to be changed. I give Nancy Drew Files number 15 a 9 out of 10.